Thank you. That was the nicest ghost introduction I ever had, but I'm Alex Thamm, the moderator. I'm from Cosmopolis. I'm going to be very short in my talk, that we have enough time for our panelists, our speakers. We will be talking here, as it was announced, about green hydrogen, reshaping global value chains, and we have first a greeting, then a small 2 pitches, presentations about the topic, and then a panel discussion. All of that in 45 minutes. So I'm not going to do much more talking, except I hope you're all well. You got some coffee on the way here, and you're enjoying the Hamburg Sustainability Conference as much as I do. And that said, everything else will come on the run through the show. And I would ask you, I'm not going to read out CVs of our distinguished speakers, but please use the app. Everything is on there. You can also rate us afterwards. You can give me a bad rating if you like to. That's fine. I'm still happy to be here, and I'm now very honored that His Excellency Karim Badawi, Minister of Petroleum and Mineral Resources of the Arabic Republic of Egypt, right? There we go. I'm very happy you're here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm told I have a very few minutes actually for the talk today. So first of all, it's an honor to be here today. And the really distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, today we have actually a lot of unraveling in the world of hydrogen. This global development policy platforms, tackles a lot of discipline, right? And for us to be here in the Hamburg Sustainability Forum is something where we're very, very proud to be here. And thank you for the invitation to be here. And before going in any further, I also wanted to thank really the General Federal Ministry of Economic Cooperation and Development for its cooperation with the United Nations Development Program to organize also this event. And in the past few years, there's been a lot of monumental developments, right, ongoing, which have really kind of are all enabling a more sustainable future for everyone. And there is now no longer a question whether the energy transition is going to happen or not. Now the question is really how quickly, it will happen, and what role we can each play in that, whether from a government, private sector, and companies, and the role of technology, and also how do we strike the right balance between the energy security and also the energy transition. And also it is very important that we need to make sure we're providing the energy resources, right, that the world needs, not only for today, but also for tomorrow. And this is why hydrogen plays such a key important role that we have to really kind of put on the top of our priorities today to enable hydrogen to be a key enabler for a low carbon economy for the future and for a better planet for everyone. And what I wanted to really kind of highlight is that the Egyptian government, right, is really addressing a lot of these issues and has really put hydrogen and sustainable development as one of its key priorities. And starting as well in the COP27 in Sharm el-Sheikh, which was held in Egypt, we have actually moved on in terms of developing a lot of different, let's say, MOUs with the EU to look at how we can facilitate the knowledge and information exchange and to implement projects on renewable hydrogen and as well on its derivatives. And I'm here today to really also talk that actually we've moved really from a stage of talking from MOUs into actions and delivering tangible results. And I wanted to give a few elements, components of these. One of it is that we've also developed, a low carbon hydrogen policy, right, which has been endorsed by the Supreme Energy, Council, right, of Egypt, with all the different cabinet members and so forth, to show the commitment of all the various ministries within the cabinet of Egypt on moving into a low carbon, energy into the future. And we've also worked this in terms of really focusing on delivering tangible projects for this, because we also wanted to make sure that we work together to really move on how we can have tangible results. And for this, we've really kind of looked at also COP28 as a key opportunity for us to actually sign concrete agreements. And we're very proud actually of one of those agreements, right, with SCATEC, which actually is related to the development of 2 pioneering hydrogen projects for production of green ammonia and biomethanol, right, in Egypt. And this is also just a key example of how, when we talk about development of projects in terms of green hydrogen, that we need to have all the stakeholders being aligned. And I think one of the very positive experiences that we've gone through is one whereby we have leveraged, Egypt, incentive policies for the development of hydrogen projects in Egypt to be able to leverage, its infrastructure, to leverage its location, and to leverage as well the presence, obviously, of sun, right, and wind and land, to be able to enable companies to be able to come to Egypt, use it as a hub to produce hydrogen, and to be able to enable that hydrogen to be exported as well to Europe. So this project actually with Scatec is a very good example whereby there is collaboration between companies in terms of development in terms of green hydrogen, but also the element in the hydrogen domain is about also off-takers. And again, this is where, again, with a signed also off-taking agreement with, Yara company has also been enabled for this project to see also the light. But not only that, with also the collaboration also of financing, and this is something which has also come right during the talks also this morning, the importance of financing. And this is also where, again, the German element has also provided really a key element in terms of financing element for this project, which I also really wanted to really kind of really thank the German government, right, for all the support and all the collaboration in providing really this, this key milestone, whereby tomorrow actually we'll be signing with the German government for Egypt for this green hydrogen project, with Scatec. And then this shows really a very good combination whereby you have the government, doing its role in terms of local regulation, local policies to be able to attract investments into the hydrogen sphere, looking in terms of collaboration with, with companies, with the technology, development and so forth to enable that technology to see the light, and also to really work in collaboration with the off-takers, right, that we really need to have to be able to accelerate the development of, the hydrogen economy of the future. And with the last 3 seconds remaining to me for the, for the call, I really wanted to make sure that really the development of hydrogen is something that would require a lot of collaboration, a lot of partnership, a lot of roles to be played by governments in terms of providing the right incentives for local investment, but also in terms of technology collaboration with different stakeholders, financial institutions also to enable the funding of those projects, and also really developing the market for hydrogen, and hence the role of off-takers to really enable us to make sure that we can drive a positive hydrogen economy for the future, for the benefit of the world, and for the benefit of also creation of more green employment for the future for our different population across the globe. So with that, I really want to thank you. And again, it's a great pleasure to be able to speak here from the Hamburg Sustainability Conference. And really, we look forward to continued collaboration and partnership with all the different stakeholders in this key domain for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for really setting the stage for that future talk, His Excellency. And I see there's another member of your cabinet. Welcome here. And so now, after we have seen how you work around the topic in Egypt, and also it was a great insight how many players you have to connect, we have now 2 pitches. And the title of the pitches is Green Industry Transformation Opportunities and Challenges. My 2 speakers are now not a pro and a con, but they bring in 2 perspectives. And if you would like, you can come here together. And I would like to welcome with a big applause Mrs. Gauri Singh. Welcome. And she is the Deputy Director General of the International. Oh, you didn't fall.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
That sounded like a fall.
No, I don't know.
Like, she is Director of the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, and you're based in the United Arab Emirates.
Emirates, yes.
Yes. So welcome here to Hamburg. And also a big welcome to Dr. Tilman Altenburg. He's Head of Transformation, Economics and Social Systems with the German Institute of Development and Sustainability, IDOS, in Bonn, Germany. Applause and welcome for you too. So you're invited to follow the example of the minister. You have a clock in front of you. You have 5 minutes each. We don't take questions for that, but we keep it interactive, and compared to the other places, we also have a little forum in front of that hall where you can speak and connect later on. So the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here speaking in front of all of you at the Hamburg Sustainability Conference. I want to start by actually saying something which we all know, which is that energy transition is an imperative. And within that, green hydrogen has a critical role to play. In fact, at IRENA, we do the outlooks, the World Energy Transition Outlook, and what we've attributed to green hydrogen is that it'll play a role of 12% in reducing emissions by 2050. So that makes it extremely critical as we move forward. So as you can also see on the slide, the challenges are many. And whether the challenges are about increasing the production of clean hydrogen, green hydrogen, or it's about getting more electrolyzer capacity in the manufacturing, or it is about getting more investments into the infrastructure which the new ecosystem of hydrogen would need. All these are very critical challenges, and 2030 for us is a very important milestone because that pretty much sets the foundation for what 2050 will look like. So let me talk about what countries are doing to address these challenges. And clearly, the countries have responded very actively. At IRENA, we've tried to analyze this in a report that you can see out there, which is about how hydrogen strategies are looking across the world. So while about half the strategies from the global north are about hard-to-abate sector, about looking at how they can boost local production in their countries and also setting the stage to import. The other half strategies coming from the developing countries is about responding to this demand that's coming up, responding to this huge demand that's coming up, becoming a part and contributing to the ecosystem that's getting built. But so you saw a lot of the strategies from developing countries coming out with export focus. However, there is a shift that we are seeing now. And the shift is very important for us to note because the shift is happening in terms of green hydrogen now playing the role of making the domestic decarbonization happen in these countries and also giving a boost to green industrialization, creating the jobs, creating the prosperity in those countries. And this shift is quite a remarkable shift. And I'll leave Dr. Tilman to speak a little bit more about it.
Okay, thank you very much. The question is then, where can countries industrialize? So where can the value be created, right? And we looked at hydrogen. This very complex graph here shows essentially hydrogen is really at the center of economic systems. It has lots and lots of backward and forward linkages, and therefore lots of opportunities for industrial development and employment creation. So what we see here, for example, is the first part is the key of creating hydrogen, producing renewable energies, solar, wind, geothermal, etc. Then using electrolyzers to produce hydrogen, maybe desalination plants. That's the core of the industry. That's one industrial cluster. But then you have all the backward linkages as another opportunities. You can move into the linkages producing solar panels, wind turbines, power, wind blades, etc. All the inputs that you would need. And then we have a third group of industries, which is the the forward integration industries here, because usually countries will not export hydrogen, but derivatives, like methanol and ammonia and LOHC or synfuels. That's another group of industries that can be exploited. And you have a fourth one if you're going on the export route. It's about vessels, pipelines, port infrastructure, storages, etc. And you have a fifth one if you say, okay, we want to use our hydrogen for domestic decarbonization into our own hard-to-abate industries, steel, cement, fertilizers, petrochemicals, you name it. And the same in the transport system. And then there's a seventh cluster of industrial opportunities. If you say, as a country, we want to bet on our very low hydrogen costs and attract foreign direct investments in energy-intensive industries to produce here where the lowest costs are. So the next thing we did is then look at all available strategies of countries that have of the global south that have a explicit hydrogen strategy, one being Egypt, for example. And we thought, okay, what kind of industrial routes of this menu of opportunities, what do they pick, right? And we see, firstly, there are, in a stylized way, 3 different ways of achieving industrialization. One strategy is exporting derivatives or hydrogen, which then creates opportunities and backward linkages with solar, etc. But all the forward linkages into domestic decarbonization are missing. The second strategy is then countries that say we want to essentially decarbonize our steel, cement, petrochemical industries. That's the core of our industries. There we see manifold opportunities for local niche technology developments, etc. And then you have a third stylized strategies is where countries start to think about, let's use this for attracting energy-intensive investments. And we just picked 4 countries here arbitrarily, but just to show, they all have very different strategies. So some bet primarily the X means priority focus, the 0 means it's mentioned in the strategy, but not as the key priority, and minus means it's not mentioned in their strategies. And we see very different focus, like India focusing on the domestic decarbonization very much, other countries more on exports, and some countries also not on attracting FDI. So there are different ways that countries can pick, and that's, I think, very important to have some joint learning on that. And I think it's important to also consider that there may be tensions if countries, as Gauri said, increasingly shift towards using hydrogen at home, and the global north interest in getting as much hydrogen as possible. So is that a trade-off? Are there opportunities for collaboration? That's what we want to explore in our final slide. Over to you again, please.
So what we've seen is the shift that's happening in the thinking, and it's getting reflected in the strategies that now we see coming from the global south. And I'll give you a few examples from countries that you can see that shift happening much more. But one of the things that also countries are realizing is that it's challenging to transport hydrogen. And if that's the case, where you have that very known phrase of death of distance, well, that's not happening in hydrogen just as yet. So it's expensive to transport hydrogen, and then what it means is that industries go where hydrogen is more competitively produced. And that, if you remember, was also how the coal fields attracted steel investments, because the steel industry moved closer to where the coal was. So some examples from countries. Kenya, which had in the first part of the this decade, saw a huge decline in maize production, leading to food insecurity in its 3 million people. And the reason was that the fertilizer prices went up by almost 60%, and this was exacerbated by drought conditions. So its policy that came out in 2023 focuses and underpins its agriculture sector and food security by saying that they would actually be using hydrogen for making green fertilizer, so that their imports can come down, and there's much more resilience in the economy. UAE, for example, has also bet very much on the low carbon strategy for domestic consumption. And UAE, as you know, is a producer of oil. It contributes about 8% in the global crude oil trade. Is looking at iron and steel, aluminum, chemicals, and other long-term transport as industries that would kickstart its ecosystem for creating the domestic demand and the anchor demand that would make hydrogen there competitive, and then also consider export when it meets its domestic demand. Mauritania, as we know, is also one that was looking at export, but the president of EU earlier this year spoke about and encouraged Mauritania to think about green steel production. And I think getting value-added products is going to be very critical. So just as the global north looks at meeting its demand coming from local production and import, we're also going to be looking at the domestic production getting ramped up for domestic decarbonization in the global south. And I just want to leave and end by saying that what we heard from Chancellor in the morning about the Pact for Future, which Germany and Namibia facilitated together, it's about the new construct in international collaboration that's now needed, which actually moves forward with alliances based on trust and underpinned by an approach of being a win-win solution. And I hope that's the way we will go.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you to both of you, Gauri Singh and Tilman Altenburg. And while we have a change of panelists up here, I would like to activate you. Please all get up for a minute. Just stand up. It's late in the afternoon. You've been listening a lot. And I've been given guiding questions for this panel, and one I would like to give to you now. After also these presentations in the day of input and the Chancellor speaking, how should we deal with global structure change and turn around and speak to someone you don't know? And we have assistance from our technical staff. They will do a gong in 2 minutes, right? Okay, turn around. How to deal with global structure change. Introduce yourself, try to connect. If you're first row, you can go with somewhere where you would like. You can start saying thank you. We can shake hands again. 10, 9. We hear the gong. The time is over. I would like my panel to come up. Please don't fall. Yeah. It's okay. I want you all to sit down again. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello. We continue. Thank you. Sorry for taking these 2 minutes from your talk, but now you have very awake and eager listeners. And I'm very happy to welcome here on stage. Next to me is Eve Bangemann. She is Lead Climate Change and Sustainability Services at EY Germany. Welcome here, Eve. And then on my far right, left, yeah, whatever you see on the other end, it's Joanne Bate. She is COO of the Industrial Development Corporation, IDC, in South Africa. And framed by both is Britta van Boven. She's the Managing Director of Gasunie, Gasunie Germany. And as I said, we wanted to look how do we deal with these structural changes, what specific upheavals, challenges, and opportunities are associated with it, and what structures need to be established to secure geopolitical changes. And we have not a lot of time left. So I'm going to start with my first question to each of you. And I forgot a big applause for my podium. Apologies. Joanne, I start with you. What opportunities does this global hydrogen ramp up bring for the South African industry, and which industrial sectors in your countries do you think have the best opportunities for development and growth? Or also vice versa, where do you see disadvantages? But we want to have a positive outlook here into the future.
Well, fortunately, I've drunk the hydrogen Kool-Aid, so I only have a positive outlook. From a South African perspective, we do have a very highly established manufacturing capacity within the country. So a very strong industrial base that we've had. I mean, the IDC was involved post the First World War in building our steel industry and subsequently our petrochemicals industry. And those are the industries that contribute very heavily towards the carbon emissions. I mean, our one site, Secunda, has the largest global carbon emitter. So primarily in the hydrogen strategy is decarbonizing these heavy industries. We have a very strong mining industry, so explosives becomes really important. So it really is the chemical, steel, and explosives industry that become critical from a decarbonization perspective. And ammonia for fertilizers is a critical opportunity for reducing our imports of highly toxic chemicals for agriculture. I mean, it is quite extraordinary. We don't go into the environmental aspects of the chemicals that are currently used, but I mean, there's significant benefits from green ammonia and also utilizing some of our phosphate rock that we have in the country. On the sustainable aviation side, both from a biofuel as well as from a hydrogen perspective, there's significant opportunities to produce highly competitively priced sustainable aviation fuel. Currently, it would only be able to be used for outgoing flights or by the Asian market because of the delegated acts the South African location and the southern tip of trade routes presents a very real and immediate opportunity for decarbonization of shipping. I'll stop there. I can go on all day. I'm watching the clock.
We all know that there's a lot going on in your country, and thank you for giving us an insight and also see very practical how these changes are influencing your industry. And moving on to you, Britta, not because it's in that order, because I would like to have the two practitioners speak more and give you an insight. You mainly working about gas and everything involved, and in the context of the energy and transition and the globally pursued decarbonization, strategic realignments, technology adaptations, and above all, significant investments are required. So what opportunities and challenges after what we heard from South Africa, arise for you as an international gas network operator?
Yes, thank you very much. I think it's very important to realize that the green hydrogen chain is currently not really there yet. We're just in the process of building it. And I think that's, on the one hand, of course, that's a very big challenge. On the other hand, it presents us with a huge opportunity to do things we've done in the past, not so good, to do that better now. And I think that applies to Europe, or, well, the northern world, as well as to the countries that want to produce the green hydrogen, where there's lots of sun, and to use everyone's strength. But this can only work, I believe, if you really make it real win-win situations for everyone involved. Because this value chain is still new, and also European customers still think, well, when I get electricity or when I buy a car made of steel, it's still steel or it's still electricity, whether it's green or not. I don't feel that as a customer. So the willingness to actually pay extra is not necessarily there. It's not a given. So we also need to show that it's, to make it green and to make it a win-win situation for everyone, we need to explain that story. We need to show it to everyone, and I think it's also, in the end, it can be sustainable because there's lots of little opportunities there. For example, in the financing, when you can show that you don't only not do any harm with the investment you make, but you actually do good, that you actually improve the situation. For example, I really love the example of the chemicals you just mentioned. But I think we shouldn't forget that it takes a lot of talking and a lot of cooperation to actually get this going to the level that it works on a large scale. And I think there will be quite a bit of misunderstanding and quite a bit of friction every now and then, but I think it's really important to have from the onset now that cooperation on the right terms.
Yeah, thank you, and also for giving that outlook that it's more also to think in the future of a public awareness, like all of these ideas we talk about, all of these strategies have to have public support, so thank you for bringing that in. And if you're with EY Germany, and the session is entitled Reshaping Global Value Chains, and so what kind of industry-related structural effects do you assume in your studies and your work could appear, and which industries might be affected most and in what way?
Yeah, I mean, we have heard about that a little bit already today. It's the industries that are most affected are the hard-to-abate industries, like the chemical industry, steel industry, paper printing, but also waste-to-energy industry, refineries, and so on. And but if we look a little bit deeper, then there are differences. If I look, for instance, in the steel industry, I mean, they need green hydrogen as an input factor for the production. And if I look then on the Global South as an example, I mean, there is everything there in order to produce green hydrogen. We do not have in the Global North enough hydrogen to that meets the demand from the industry. So it would be easy to think maybe we just transport, produce the hydrogen in the Global South and bring this then to the industry. But the transport costs, and we talked about that, are far too high. And even if the production is less costly in the Global South, the difference between the production of 1 ton green steel and gray steel is still $200 per ton today. And so the willingness to pay for 1 ton green produced steel is far too high. So, but still, we were talking about, is there an opportunity that value chain move from the Global North to the Global South? I would rather predict from what I heard from our clients, I do not see that for the steel industry because the investments in the infrastructure is really huge and we have a long history, even it's connected with coal and the mineral resources in the past. but still I wouldn't see that from the perspective we are seeing, but I would see that differently for the production where we use biomass as an input factor, as a raw material. There it's maybe a different story. And what we see as a consultant is that there are clients that ask us to support them with feasibility studies to see whether it makes sense to use the biomass that's not sufficiently available in the global north, in the global south, produce it there, but of course production costs are lower, the raw material is available, and then maybe import it from there. But overall, I think it all needs a very close collaboration between the North and the South.
Thank you. And as time is getting to a close, I'm going to do a power lightning round with you. And the first question would be to you, Britta. Looking at reconcile climate protection with sustainable economic development, there's a high economic performance cross-border infrastructure that connects hydrogen producers, consumers, storage facilities. Maybe I would have asked you for several examples, but maybe you can share one example to be shared also with our guest here from the Global South, which you at Gasunie think is a very good one to look at.
Yes, thank you very much. I think, well, what is happening now in Germany is that we are investing in the hydrogen network, in the pipeline network that is now largely being used for natural gas transport, and we want to use that for hydrogen transport. And the plans are to have a network of about 10,000 kilometers, of which about 60 to 70% will be reused pipelines. Still, it's a huge investment, and it will need to be cross-border. So also in the Netherlands, in Denmark, in the countries around Germany, there will be lots of investment in that hydrogen infrastructure. And it also needs to connect to the harbors to be able to import hydrogen. And because, as you rightly mentioned, there's, I mean, even if quite a bit of industry goes to other countries, there will still be many hard-to-abate sectors that need to import hydrogen, more than we can probably produce on the North Sea and with solar. So we see that these chains, because it's a lot of investment that is necessary to develop these networks, even if we are reusing our infrastructure, we need to set up the commercial value chains as well to give certainty to all the investors, because also here a harbor, of course, is very expensive. And I think it's something that helps all of us, because we do need the certainty of demand as well as the certainty of supply.
Thank you. And if to you, do you see from your perspective a tendency from companies willing to invest more in the countries of the Global South?
Yeah, it depends on the industry, as I outlined before, and it also depends on the conditions they find in the Global South, and the other way around, it depends on the long-term commitment of the industry in the Global North really to invest in the Global South. And so I think both is very important. What we see from those feasibility studies, as an example, is that the companies are very much interested in outreach to the stakeholders in the Global South in order to discuss how they can help meet their needs. And we heard this morning this example with stable electricity. This is something that's very much important for the countries in the Global South. And I think here can both have a win-win situation. If we build up their production sites, electrolysis, to produce green hydrogen, we can help the countries to stabilize their electricity supply. And so at the end, I think talking together, sharing best practices and collaborating is the key.
Yeah. And Joanne, I would have had a question prepared, but something on your mind that you would like to share what we just talked about?
So what does come to mind, it started with, I think there's been this common theme. You were talking about being able to manage the narrative. In an earlier conversation on blockchain, the example was given about how can we build trust and transparency in order to create win-win situations. And I think that's really what is needed in hydrogen. I'm almost feeling like it's a region-to-region cooperation that is necessary. For a number of the projects that we're looking at, one of the biggest new risks emerging is that the country risk is not the risk of where the project is, but actually also the risk of the off-taker because of changing rules and standards. So I really do think that this transparency, trust, and collaboration is absolutely key for us to move this forward at speed. Thanks.
Thank you. And it's 16:45, but I have a closing question round for all of you. We are here at a Future Talk. It's the first Hamburg Sustainability Conference, and this panel was very much about solution connections. Thank you that you connected to each other, and future aspects of the discussion. And you have now a moment to pitch for next year's 2025 Hamburg Sustainability Conference. What would be an aspect you would like to discuss next year, Eve?
Okay, I would like to discuss how we can enable the transition to green hydrogen using what we have here today. And I mean kind of a stepwise approach rather than a big jump to a good solution at the end.
Thank you. And from you, Britta, what would you like to discuss 2025?
I would really love to not discuss, but actually show off the first real projects that are further than LOIs and really something to touch. And I think here we already have the pipelines to touch here locally, but the whole chain to touch, that is not there yet. I'd really love to have that.
We would love to see that too. And before, thank you. And Joanne.
Yeah, that was going to be my answer, but in addition to that, maybe lessons learned on how projects reached FID and what is inhibiting them from reaching FID and problem solving around that, so we can actually accelerate the space.
So now a big applause from my podium, and thank you very much. And thank you also very much to Minister Karim Badawi and to Tilman Altenburg and Gauri Singh. And thank you for you being here so active. And let's get together, discuss solutions, and look into the future, and find the way to the next session you want to attend. Thank you very much.